I want to apologize for the tie. I know I'm at a Waldorf school. The trouble is I was in New Canaan at my last talk and I got very sort of hedge fundy corporate. New Canaan gives us a very good example of why I talk about, write about, and consult about youth sports. So I met some parents who pay their kids to score goals and grab rebounds in soccer and basketball as an incentive to incentivize their kids. Hedge fund managers' kids, remember, hedge fund managers tend to have never played sports, but they really want their kids to play and perform. Hi. One coach who I wanted to actually film for a documentary that we've been developing, he took his team when they came in second place in a football tournament championship and had a trophy burning. He forced the kids all to come together and put the second place trophies in a pile, and then he had them burned. Now, I don't know how well they burned because you know what they're made of, but there was a trophy burning. This is the kind of attitude and misguidance that is so pervasive all throughout America. Also in North America, I've been talking in Ottawa and in British Columbia, also in many places in Europe, although there are some better attitudes. The key basically with kids is we want to develop their athleticism and their understanding of social interaction through sports. That's the goal, not winning a championship when they're 7 years old. That really has very little long-term value. So I just want to ask you guys to stand up for 1 second. If everybody could stand up for a second. So, great. Now, jumping jacks. No, just kidding. No jumping jacks. If everyone here except, starting with Will, you all sit down. All of you sit down, please. Everybody else stay up. Everybody sits down. Everybody sits down except my camera guy. And now maybe another 5 of you in this line here can sit down. Yes. Okay, you guys remain. Okay, so if you look at what we have here, this is the situation. Sports dropouts. Why do 70% of little leaguers and child sports participants quit by the age of 13? 70% of our kids, maybe 75 sometimes. In other words, all of you guys playing youth sports, probably from the age of 4, 5, or 6, and having a great time most of the time, for some reason or other, stopped playing when you were 12 or 13 and didn't play again. Only these guys kept on going. Thank you very much. Please have a seat. That's stunning. Why is this happening? The top 5 reasons kids are quitting. They hate the coach or their teammates. They don't enjoy playing the sport, or practice is not dynamic enough. In other words, they're just not having fun. They feel they cannot compete. They ride the bench. They're the substitutes. They never get playing time at the age of 9 or 11. They are overwhelmed by the number of activities they've signed up for. They're suffering from burnout, physical or psychological exhaustion. Let's back up for a minute here and think about how we grew up and interacted on and off the fields and courts. Remember how we would disappear for hours to the playground or the park and just hang out and play together. Walk around any neighborhood in North America today. I have, in Ottawa, Toronto, Vancouver, San Diego, fields, courts, playgrounds. They are, for the most part, completely empty. Isn't it ironic that a man named Mike Lanza in Menlo Park, California, wrote a book called Playborhood? He wrote it, it's a how-to for parents to create spaces where you can draw kids to so they will play again the way we did naturally back in the day. America's children are being robbed of their childhoods. It's as simple as that. Play used to be the way we discovered ourselves and explored the world around us. Perhaps it was a sandlot where, glove in hand, we argued with friends, drew lots, and fanned out to immerse ourselves in a pickup basketball game or baseball game. Or maybe it was flashlight tag. We chased each other in the dusk, laughing and tumbling, bumping and bumbling around. But we connected with each other, with parents, siblings, and friends. Life was physical and immediate. Interaction was direct. We talked and fought and resolved our conflicts face to face. Modern technology changed all that. We Facebook and test, watch Vimeo and videos gone viral. Life is experienced and learning is filtered to us through digital devices. Nowadays, kids are plugged in often before they can walk. What more alarming statistical affirmation of this social tsunami can there be than the Kaiser Foundation's declaration that children are exposed to an average of 7.5 hours of screen time per day, screen media per day. Kids relate to each other differently these days. Teenagers woo each other by text. They break up on Twitter. Tease and taunt each other in extreme cases to the point of suicide in cyberspace. The effects of such a hyper-wired lifestyle can be emotionally and physically crippling. Many of our children are bereft of the interpersonal social skills that we learned through common interaction when we were young and still take for granted. So what is a parent to do? I have 5 kids of my own. They're in a Waldorf school. And by the way, this is happening in Waldorf schools too, although we all know the media policy. I want my kids to connect with other kids. Millions of parents have turned to youth sports as a panacea. Young moms and dads scramble to sign their toddlers up for swim lessons and soccer practice and t-ball, tennis lessons. They hope that their children will learn to interact with other kids in organized play. Sports will teach them the social skills they need to navigate the world. And here's where we get into the issue of timing. I play sports all my life. I'm a tireless advocate of youth sports. But with 5 kids of my own, I have come to realize that too much too soon can have a negative effect on kids that is as damaging as is technological overload. I ask you, how much difference is there between an obese teenager who gorges on video games and has no social skills and a hyper-aggressive former elite 13-year-old who has a complete ACL tear or major concussion issues and no longer plays sports at all, ever again? Both extremes are unhealthy. Neither outcome is one you or I would want for our kids. Let's take a look as some of you approach the moment as mothers and fathers when you are deciding to put your kids in organized sports at what the right age is. I spoke last week to a mom and dad in Texas. Grandpa and grandma are pressuring them to sign their kids up. So are all their neighbors and friends. Their kids are 4 and 5 years old. Well, from the get-go, I can tell you there are steep costs to starting your child too early. It's important to know the pitfalls so you can avoid them. One is pretty obvious. At least it's clear to everyone except you, the parent, who are caught up in it. And that's that you have hopes and dreams for your child. And they're not your child's hopes and dreams. They're yours. But this powerful force takes us over, and we push our child lovingly along the path to optimal performance. It's the top reason kids quit sports early. Pressure from pushy parents. What it can do to a child who loves sports is heartbreaking. There's a kid I coach. His father and he share a deep passion for soccer. It's how they connect. It's the bond that they have. They both love this sport. They both watch it on TV. He's coached his son a lot. Now I'm his coach. The father means well, but he tapes every single game of the travel soccer team that I coach. I don't like being taped all the time. Who knows what I'll say or do. But The point is, the kid has his father taping his every single move on a soccer game, every single Sunday. And when his kid walks off the field, his dad has also developed all kinds of statistics. The percentage of passes that he'd completed, the number of times he made a tackle, the number of times he missed a shot. It's really overwhelming emotionally to a child. The boy ended up at one point with an injury, which I even questioned was a real injury, but I think he just wanted his dad to back off. So the dad spent the better part of a week reviewing all this film in order to offer me, the coach, advice about how the team is doing and what's going on. And that's interesting. I also met a father who would tape his son's tennis performances and had an app and had something plugged into his iPad that would rank his son in statistics against all the other competitors in America. So the kid was 10 and a half. So what do we do to kids when we develop this tension around something that they're supposed to be having fun with is we kill the fun. We make this about, here's the thing, a father is giving all this attention to his son. If the kid doesn't perform, is the dad going to continue connecting with him and giving him attention? If he fails, is he going to lose this bond? That's what the kid is thinking. Whereas the parent just wants his kid to do well. Well-intentioned, but the results are really damaging. What has happened to that kid who I coach is that when he does get the ball, he's really scared. He's worried about what he's going to do, so he gets the ball and he quickly passes it away as fast as he can. Now, you can't play creatively, intelligently, and well if you don't want the ball. 15 of my 16 kids always want the ball. In fact, I can't get them to pass the ball to each other enough. Whereas this kid, because of what's going on in this dynamic with his father, doesn't want the ball. One of the key issues that we talk about in youth sports are specialization and safety. More than 1.35 million kids last year had a sports-related injury that was severe enough to send them to a hospital emergency department. These injuries range from sprains and strains to fractures, contusions, abrasions, concussions, and this is for kids ages 6 to 19. The total cost of all these visits in America was just shy of $1 billion. And the troubling fact is that many of these injuries are preventable. Some are due to overuse, others to lax rules followed by referees, bad selection of equipment, or the systemic misunderstanding that parents, volunteers, and leagues have about age-appropriate play. Well, two examples I have of this are a soccer game last fall in which the referees decided to use this curious phrase, which I'm sure, Will, you've heard of, just let the kids play. It is one of the most damaging philosophical phrases that applies to youth sports. Let the kids play means let them bump each other, elbow each other, just game flow. We want to keep the game flowing. So what happened was I arrived in Mamaroneck, New York with my team and saw a referee and two assistant referees. First time in 3 years that happened. I was very excited. Wow, we've got the center ref and two referees that are going to run the sidelines. This is going to be a tight game, well called, excellent. What proceeded to happen for the first half, as I counted it, there were 27 fouls that were not called by the referees. Some of them were light, kids just shoving each other. They're all 11 and 12 years old. One of them might have been a trip. One of them was a hard push. But what happens is when kids are in a situation like this, where the adults who are who are to govern their play space are not holding the team and the kids. They're not creating conditions that are safe is that the kids start to go wild. Basically, if I can push you and get the ball and the ref's not going to call it, why wouldn't I do it? I'm going to get the ball. Coach is yelling at me, get the ball. That's how I'm going to do it. So we had a kind of a perfect storm here of a coach on the other side who screamed at the kids constantly and 3 referees who did nothing. Okay, so what? We get this all the time. It was a difficult game. You play through it. Only with a minute left to go before the end of the half, one of their kids took the whole push the other guy because nobody's calling it a little too far, and he ran into my biggest player, the player who on our side was able to, the most capable. He ran right into him, head-on collision. Both kids fell down. Mine got up a little bit dizzy, but furious and angry because he'd been pushed around all game, and the other kid was concussed. The other kid was actually taken out of the game immediately and taken to an emergency room. I took my guy out because he started trying to shove all their other players because he's not a kid who starts a fight, but now he was really angry. He later he had a concussion, and luckily his school had done a baseline test, and he was out for 3 weeks. No playing, no math, no school. This is how serious it can be. Maybe you all know somebody, but I know kids who have not studied math for 2 years because of concussions they've had. The sad thing is none of this was necessary if the referee had called properly the game. And the age appropriateness of this is when you have kids who are 17 or 18, you allow them a little more space. You don't let them kick each other and trip each other and elbow each other, but they're allowed to be a little more physical. When they're 14, it's different. When they're 12, it's different. But we don't have, for some reason, an educative system that teaches referees and coaches and heads of leagues that age-appropriate play and age-appropriate governance are critical to keeping our kids out of emergency rooms.
Thank you very much for listening.